So my name is Julie Reynolds. I'm with the University of Missouri, Kansas City Institute for Human Development. And here with me is David Baker, whose lovely ceiling you can see there. And then our executive producer of the Missouri Open Door Monthly Workshop Series is Miranda Schultz. She's not got her camera on, but she is here manning the executive producing the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So I know I want to be cognizant of everybody's time and have plenty of time for David because he's got the important stuff. So for today, we're really going to talk about kind of an overview of the Missouri No Wrong Door Project. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to Charting the Life course and how it can kind of help you with some of the things we're going to talk about today. We're also going to learn about how to technology for accessing computers and printed materials. So David is going to go through all that. And then we've got any other comments from anybody about what's going on, we will do that. So a little bit about me. My name is Julie Reynolds, and this is me and my mother after the first time I got to see her in 14 months. So that was our happy day. She's 89 and is living with dementia. So I've been working in the DD field for about 35 years with individuals with developmental disabilities and their families, and have a really strong belief in all the things that technology can do for people with disabilities, for older Americans, and just for anybody who needs that. I've got several things that I've used with my mother that have been very, very helpful. So I'm happy to be here, and David will introduce himself when he starts his part. So the Missouri No Wrong Door Project started probably about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And really the whole No Wrong Door has been around for a long time, but UMKC received a grant to really try and enhance the No Wrong Door. And it's really just what it means and what it is really just making sure people can get access to their communities, to the systems they need, really so they can know what is out there for them and so they can make some informed decisions. So it's really just sort of having that, there's no wrong door. The front door is always there, and it's not a real door, obviously, although in my mind it is, to really get into supports in Missouri. So kind of just talking about it here, I wanted to specifically really point out, we've got a lot of statewide partners here, Missouri Assistive Technology being one of our big ones, the Division, Adult Disabilities, the Family Support Division of Senior Services, Missouri Health Net, the area agencies on aging, and the Centers for Independent Living here in Missouri. So part of this whole thing was to really find great partnerships across the state where we could start working and making sure people have all the right things they need to get in that front door. So a little bit about Charting the Life course. If you haven't heard of Charting the Life course, there's just some brief information here. It really is a framework for really driving transformational change and cultural change. I come from a state government previous to this job. I call it the dark side sometimes, but really I don't think it is. People just tell me it was. But really it is how you can make that transformative and cultural change in systems to really support all people across their lifespan and the things they need. We have a lot of, within the framework, really talking about different ways we can use language and visuals to engage others. And there's some strategies and tools I'm going to show you later that you can really use to help some problem solving across, especially with assistive technology. So again, here's kind of what we are doing. And you can see we have this beautiful, beautiful visual about the individual and their family with their life domains. But really part of the Charting the Life course that you'll see today is really helping you as professionals and families and individuals, kind of navigate what they want for their lives and their future, sharing ideas. And I think my favorite thing about Charting the Life course is that bullet in the middle that says set higher expectations. We tend to set our bars very low for all people in the world. And I think the higher we can raise expectations and set that bar, the better off all people will be. So today's topic is not viewing, but accessing computers and printed materials, as I said earlier. David made that nice strikeout in there because it's really more than just viewing. So I want to talk a little bit about really what that means and how we think about this access to computers and printed materials in the context of really communication. So really thinking about how we communicate. So we all, many of us can communicate verbally and by also listening or actively listening. The active part of listening is sometimes the hardest part, but that's one way to communicate. We also all communicate probably non-verbally with our expressions, our hand movements, our eye contact. I have to sort of hold my hands like down, because if I was really talking like I usually do, you'd be seeing all this kind of stuff. So no one wants that. And really for today, really what we're addressing with that communication is really viewing written information on paper, on a computer, on other devices. Our phones are now little computers in our pockets, but so that's kind of what includes phones and tablets. And then really the other way we communicate is just visually with people, like the way looking at people with the different devices, showing them things, social media, sending images, those sorts of things. So, and really communication is very fundamental. And what we are thinking about here is if we couldn't communicate in some or all of those ways, then like what do we do? How do we address our inability in some ways for various reasons to communicate? And so we'd all need some type of help. So we're really going to discuss today that assistive technology that can help you access some of those things that are visual in nature. And David, I stole some of your slides, but Shelley made me, so we're going to blame her. So I just wanted just a little bit about visual communication. So 1 in 5 people struggle with reading in some way because of blindness, low vision, learning disability, learning styles, etc. And why this one was really close to me, because I do have some vision issues. So you're going to see sort of a couple tools I use that I wanted to share with you today that I utilized. So we also, as we look at this and start talking about what we're doing with this visual communication, it crosses all of our life domains. So whether it's your daily life of when you're just going about your daily business, or your employment at your job. I know for me, I'm wearing these reading glasses because I do have contacts, but I also need reading glasses. I also have, when I wear glasses, prescription glasses, I have 3 different pairs depending on what I need to do them for. So I can't like go into a store without my glasses or reading glasses because I can't read the tags. So Miranda sitting here with us will know that when we've gone to the student center across the way, I had to have her read the tags, so I forgot my glasses. So it really does affect your daily life every day. It also really affects your living in the community. If you are not able to see and visually interact with things or read things, it does limit you. It limits your access to community. Someone hands you a lease to sign. If you're not able to access that, through with your vision and read that, it's a problem, and people can take advantage. So really looking at that life domain, we look also very much at social and spirituality, how kind of the communication, your visuals affect your friendships and and the different things in your life and your networks, your communities. So my social network is just used to me like asking them to read menus for me when I forget my glasses. So also a big part of this is really healthy living. How we live healthy, how we have wellness. What are some things we can do to help our health and wellness around that visual? Obviously, safety and security, we talk a lot about, and then citizenship and advocacy. So all of these things really are affected by communication and by these visual things we're talking about. So I want to kind of show you a tool that I used to really think about. This is a trajectory. So really what we do with trajectories is we talk about kind of a vision for what you want for your life. And then also what you don't want. And then over here, really what you have that is going to lead you to your good life and what you have that takes you away. And then we're going to kind of talk about in a minute, the support star. So what I did when I just wanted to do this for seeing and communicating, what I really want is I want to be able to read books without straining. I want to be able to read a magazine. So for me, magazines, a real paper magazine says small print, but I have a lot of difficulty reading it. So I do have to use some assistive technology to do that. I sometimes have to put my face right up to my computer screen to see something. I don't like that. So it's like, I don't want to do that. There's lots of times too, gosh, I always do that. There's lots of times too when people forget that I have vision issues. So sometimes I want to try and like find ways so I can do my job differently without having to tell people. So for example, I don't see colors. I can't see yellow. So if someone puts something in a yellow highlight, for example, on a spreadsheet, I can't tell it's yellow. It looks just like it would look before. And if they say I can't tell the difference between blues and greens and that kind of thing. So if you put text in orange and tell me it's in orange, I can't, that doesn't help me. So, but I'm always trying to figure out, like, I don't want to have to keep telling people that, because they get tired of me, I'm sure. Well, they get tired of me for lots of reasons, but that would be one of them. One thing I do want to do, I'd love it if I had 20/20 vision of all the things I wish I could have. And again, I'd like to see colors like other people do, because I don't. And then what I don't want is things with really small print. And I don't want to have to listen to books. Lots of people do that, and that is a great thing. I don't enjoy that. I really don't like that. When I was typing this up, I made it grow here, but the print was so small and I couldn't change it. It irritated me. And the last one I don't want, I worry that I'm going to become unsafe driving. So I don't want that for my life. But then what I do have that is going to take me to what I do want, I have accommodations at work with large monitors and at home. I use a Kindle e-reader because I can change the fonts on it. And I have lots of light in my house and at work. So that's kind of you can do this just sort of like as a tool with anything. Really quickly say, what do I want and what I don't want? And then what are things that get me there? Now, if there are things that I needed that weren't getting me there, I try and find those tools to help me. So the other thing I kind of want to show you guys is this, the support star. So this is something we use to really look at, within all your life domains and life stages, what are some things that you have that are your personal strengths and assets? What relationships do you have? What technologies do you have? What community-based supports do you have? And then what kind of eligibility, those things that you're eligible or able to get, do you have? So this is my all-time favorite tool because it asks for your personal strengths and assets. And every time I've done this tool, we did some presentations over the past couple of weeks using the tool for some health departments. And they all said, the hardest part of doing this is to talk about all the things you do well, what your strengths are, because we're kind of not built that way. So I just wanted to kind of show you what I did. So this is just sort of my vision star. And so I'm resilient. I think I'm funny. Many people don't think I'm funny, but I put it down there. I have lots of experience. I'm assertive. And then all the people I have, my relationships in my life, the community-based places I have, and there's no right or wrong answer for these. I'm lucky that I have health insurance and vision insurance. And then I listed all the assistive technology I use right now for my vision. So glasses, Kindle. I have this alarm clock with huge numbers on it. I do use Audible in my car, but I can use it if I want. I also have like an iPhone that looks like a big giant brick. I also have like a phone with a flashlight on it. So there's lots of things that I have in the technology realm that I use now. And I'm hoping as we go to this next part where I'm going to turn it over to David, that he's going to teach me some more things I can use for my low vision. And if you guys have any questions about what I've kind of been talking about here, please feel free to put it in the chat. And then I'm going to turn it over to you, David, for the next slide, and I will kind of pay attention and advance your slides as you talk.
All righty. Thank you very much, Julie, and good afternoon, everybody. And Julie, actually, I thought you were funny earlier when you confessed to stealing my slides. So that's all good. Okay, well, again, good afternoon, everybody. And just to introduce myself, I'm David Baker. I'm the director of Missouri Assistive Technology, and I know a number of the folks that are on the call I know and welcome. And those that are on for the first time, welcome as well. And hopefully I'll get to know you better, or you'll get to know Missouri Assistive Technology better from some of the stuff that I share with you today. So before I kind of get into talking about technology, I want to kind of share sort of a revelation that I had a number of years ago about print material in particular. And I was always under the impression that the idea of reading was the idea of having print on paper and then learning to do all the things in one's mind to convert that into methods by which we learn things. And I've come to learn over the years that it's really not anything. What's really important is about getting content, and not everybody can access content off of a printed page. So what we're going to focus on today is ways to help people that are struggling readers use technology to be able to get that content that they may need in whatever aspect of their life that they are in at any given moment. So if you want to move to the next slide. All right, so we can skip over that because I kind of touched on this when I introduced myself. Next slide.
I just want to make sure we all realize that David is holding a robotic cat in that picture. And we all love that. It's one of our favorite projects, which we don't have time for today, but I just wanted to note David and his cat.
I was hoping you weren't going to point that out. Okay, so one of the things that we always do when we do these sessions is that we introduce a concept around assistive technology. There's lots of different sort of basic building blocks to understanding the world of technology and assistive technology in particular. So we always try to add a little bit to your knowledge about these building blocks as we do these sessions. A number of you have probably seen this slide in prior presentations, and this is kind of our different levels of technology lesson, where we have on the left-hand side, we have no tech and low tech and light tech devices, which are really simple, easy to learn, generally not expensive. On the right-hand side, we have the high tech devices that are very advanced. Usually they need some kind of training. A lot of times they're computer based. And one of the things that we always preach is that it's best to start at the low tech and the no tech side of the equation, because that's going to equal probably more success for the individual you're working with if the technology can be grasped quickly and understood and then put into practice. And so today we're going to look at things throughout the sort of technology spectrum, and I'll kind of point out to people as we're going along where I think they might fall on this scale. So let's move to the next slide. And this is today's assistive technology building block lesson. And this is a concept we refer to as feature matching, which is incredibly important when it comes to identifying and the appropriate piece of assistive technology for an individual. You wouldn't build a house for a person who uses a wheelchair and build that house with stairs on the outside. You're obviously going to build a house and the entrance to the house based around that individual's abilities and their needs. And in their case, it would be a ramp to get through the door. Same thing applies in the world of technology, where the selection should be based on what the consumer's range of abilities are and what their needs are for that device, in order to, and then look at the full range of products that are available. One of the things that we sometimes see in the world of assistive technology is that people get excited about this device or that device, and it has all sorts of bells and whistles, but they haven't necessarily looked at the individual they're working with and what their strengths and weaknesses are, what the features are that they most definitely need to achieve something, and then matching the piece of assistive technology up with those issues, as opposed to just kind of thinking that this device or that device is going to be the solution for somebody. So today's sort of building block lesson is on feature matching. So you can all add that to your repertoire of assistive technology knowledge. So if we move on to the next slide, we will actually get into some of the devices and other things that are available out there. One of the things that we've tried to do through this series of presentations and webinars is not only talk about the devices that are out there, but also talk about other things that are available in the community, or places that you can go that provide technology or provide accommodations or provide access to whatever the subject is for this particular week. So even though there's lots of great assistive technology out there, it's important to realize that in the community, some of these techniques that we use to access content are already all around us, and we just need to know that they're out there. So for instance, just kind of going through the images that are up there on the screen, the first one there that says our digital branch is always open. Libraries have become wonderful sources of audiobooks, of large print books. And a lot of times these materials can be accessed online. You don't even have to physically go to the library. And having the ability to have print text converted into an audio format or provided in audio format is a wonderful tool for a lot of people to be able to get the content that they need. And we're not just talking, common fiction or popular fiction when we're talking about the types of materials that libraries have available. They have plenty of nonfiction books, they have magazines, they have newspapers, and over again, I see libraries that are providing these in auditory and other types of digital formats so that people have equal access. Over on the right-hand side, just 3 other resources that I hope people might be familiar with. The Wolfner Talking Books and Braille Library is a wonderful resource for alternative forms of print text for people who are blind, low vision, and have learning disabilities. And they're out of Jeff City. They serve the entire state of Missouri. Wonderful resource to get familiar with if you're looking for alternative sources of print text or print text in alternative formats. Project Gutenberg is an entity that provides books that are what are known as in the common domain. And so in an educational setting, for instance, lots of the books that might be read by a school in a literature class could probably be found in Project Gutenberg. And then you always have the fee-based services out there that take books and other materials and convert them into audio formats. So these are, if the primary tool that somebody needs is the ability to get materials into an auditory format, then some of these free resources and services are definitely worth checking out and could be the solution, the low-tech solution for somebody who's struggling with those issues. So let's move on to the next slide, which is sort of the next step up in one of the things that we like to say when we're doing these presentations. Look in the community first and see what's out there. The second thing is understand what you already have, where it is, and how to use it before going out and looking at other technology solutions and or making a purchase. And so all the major computer software companies, so Apple, the Android folks, the Windows, the Microsoft folks, have over the years built in a vast array of accessibility features into their platforms. And they can all be found somewhere different or might be labeled differently, but they are generally located in the settings. If you're familiar with where your settings is in the Windows environment or in the Apple environment, and you get in there and you start looking around, you will realize that there are a lot of great already built-in assistive technology tools that might be able to address low vision or blindness or learning disabilities or physical disabilities. And those can be accessed and they can be important tools for folks. So we're talking about print text here today or text on a computer screen. So just if we can get back to that slide. So just using Windows as an example, later on, we're going to talk about screen magnification, but there's already a screen magnifier that's built into the Windows operating system. And so if you are kind of exploring an area of assistive technology, instead of going out and getting it, maybe start with the built-in tool, which in this case is called magnifier, and seeing whether or not that kind of is taking you down the right road. And if it doesn't turn out to be robust enough, then you can look at some of the products out there that might cost you a little bit more. So if we move on to the next slide. So the key thing there, the key takeaway is just get familiar with what you have under your nose that might already be built into some of the devices that you're already using. So we're going to start looking at some of the standalone assistive devices that are out there. And this is all going to be kind of high level. We're going to quickly just kind of introduce folks to some of the things. And so let's start at a couple of handheld solutions for individuals who have low vision. We have handheld magnifiers, and I would imagine most people here who are attending today are already familiar with handheld magnifiers. Maybe some folks who are attending actually use these. They are not for everybody, but they may be good for somebody who just needs a little bit of magnification every now and then for a piece of mail or something like that. One of the things I want to stress about handheld magnifiers is that there are the handheld magnifiers you might find at your local box store that are probably made of plastic, or there's these things called Fresnel screens that you see all over the place. Those might get you started. But when it comes to handheld magnifiers, there's a huge science behind all these, and there are all sorts of great handheld magnifiers for different situations that are where the glass is cut in such a way to maximize light or greater amounts of magnification. And so, it's important to kind of realize there's a lot of handheld magnifiers out there that can be really, really important or really, really useful. On the right-hand side, we have what are called electronic magnifiers. So if maybe a handheld magnifier isn't the way, somebody needs greater amounts of magnification, or they need the ability to adjust the contrast in the background, like maybe taking black letters on a white background and flipping that around to white letters on a black background, the electronic magnifiers would be a better solution. Again, greater magnification, you have more features like the contrast. They're incredibly portable. You can use them at home. You can put them in a bag and take them and use them in a restaurant to look at a menu, or maybe you're at the museum and you need to magnify a little placard that's by a picture or something like that. You can just take it out and you have instant access to being able to access that print text through electronic magnification. If we move on to the next slide. Okay, then these are a couple of handheld solutions for what it means where I have in brackets LD and LS. I think either I overlooked a slide or it didn't make it in the deck when all was said and done. These are handheld solutions for folks that have learning disabilities. And then another reason that people struggle with reading is that we all have different learning strategies. And this is something that's gotten a lot of attention over the last few years. Some of us are more tactile, some of us are more auditory, and those are our learning styles. And so for folks, for instance, who are more auditory, then maybe the print text isn't the answer in finding ways to convert stuff into text-to-speech format is the answer to help them overcome their struggle that's sort of tied to their particular learning style. So these two devices, on the left-hand side is a relatively new device that's come out called the Orcam Read. And so what it enables me to do is I have this little handheld thing and there's a built-in camera there, and it's got magic built into the device, and it will take text, and I just put it over there and I activate it, and it will almost automatically read text back to me by scanning. Or sort of a form of scanning. So it takes the print text, converts it through OCR, reads it back to me. It's really useful for reading more extensive packages or passages in a book, or a menu again, or lots of different ways that this can be used. And like I said, it's a relatively new device. I'd consider it a mid-tech, maybe a little bit of a high-tech device, but it's really handy in a lot of instances for folks that have learning disabilities or their learning style. The C-Pen reader on the right-hand side is somewhat akin to the Orcam Read, but not nearly as robust in terms of all the things that it can do. We see this used in school districts fairly often when maybe a student needs to read questions on a test. And sort of like a barcode scanner, you put it on the piece of paper, you drag it across, the text shows up in the little screen that you see maybe by the person's thumb there, depending on how well these slides are showing up. You can read this, you can see the text appear there, and then it can also be read back to them in a auditory format. So it would be a little cumbersome to use this a lot, but it's nice for those situations where somebody might struggle with a word or sentence or just a smaller amount of text and needs to convert it into an auditory format. So if we move on to the next slide, we are going to introduce you here to a couple of mobile solutions, and we'll have some mobile solutions for folks that are low vision and blind as well, but we're going to start with some mobile solutions for folks that have learning disabilities and have different learning styles. And these are two solutions that are built in already into the iOS environment, Apple's system. And I think that these are sort of a little bit underappreciated or maybe not as well known as they should be. The first one is called Speak Select. So again, these are in the accessibility settings, which you'd find in your settings, which is one of the icons that's going to be on your device. And if you go in there and you play around the accessibility, you'll find Speak Select and Speak Screen. Speak Select is kind of, in my mind, a little bit like the C-Pen reader in the sense of if I just need to get a small passage of text, a question, something in an email, those types of things read, then I might activate this where I touch on the screen. The little box is going to get there. If I need I might need to manipulate the box to get all the text that I want read read out to me or highlighted there. And then I touch the little dialog bar that pokes up and it will speak back to me. It's a nice, quick, easy tool that I can have ready to go by kind of manipulating a few things on my iPad to make it readily available. Speak Screen on the right-hand side is a more robust version, more or less, of Speak Select, where I can, by pulling 2 fingers down from the top, if I remember correctly, and after having activated this feature in my settings, I can have everything that's on the screen read back to me. So an email, a website, those types of things. There's actually another feature that's built into the iOS environment that I think is important for folks to know, and that's called Reader View, which you might see pop up when you're on a website, where if you activate Reader View, it'll strip out all the extemporaneous material that's on a website. So think CNN and how they just have stuff all over the place, but I want to focus in on an article, or maybe I find it difficult to focus in on an article and I need to get rid of all that extemporaneous stuff. Then I can activate the Reader View, strips it all out, and makes it easier for me to focus on that print text, which I could actually use in addition to Speak Select and Speak Screen if you really wanted to get tricky about it. And these are not at all complex. I would actually kind of consider them to be the low tech, the mid tech arena. And it's just a matter of just becoming familiar with where they are, figuring out how to access them, and then finding opportunities to use them. But they can make all the difference with somebody who's a struggling reader to enable them to have a tool that they can convert stuff into an auditory format. So if we move on to the next slide, this is probably not showing up real well. That text might be a little bit small, but I just wanted, I just talked about 2 things that are available for folks that have learning disabilities or folks that have different learning styles. There are also solutions built in for individuals who have low vision. In the Apple environment, you have Zoom. You can invert colors, which is flipping the text around. The example I used earlier was black text on a white background, flipping that around to white text on a black background. There are probably in all 15 different ways that I can already manipulate the content on my phone or on my iPad or on my MacBook if I have low vision, with tools that are just built in there. Generally, the iOS environment is considered to be a little fuller in terms of the types of tools that are out there for folks with various types of disabilities, but that same principle applies in the Android environment, where there are ways that I can manipulate text by going into my settings to be able to make text larger, to provide magnification, all those types of things that could be really valuable for folks that have low vision. So if we move on to the next slide, and then just same idea here as the last 2 slides, kind of pushing home the idea that these are things that are already built in to commonly used items that we probably have in our pockets or on our desks right now. For folks who are blind, VoiceOver, which is the iOS version, which is a screen reader that's built in to the iOS devices or the Apple products, is incredible. If it's kind of mind-numbing if you actually added up all the great pieces of assistive technology that are already built into devices that we need to be familiar with. And I went out and bought all those things back in the day when all that stuff was standalone. It'd be several $1,000s worth of stuff, but it's right there under our noses for free, available for different types of situations. So VoiceOver is going to be used by folks who are blind. It'll take all the content on the screen and have it spoken back to them. TalkBack is the equivalent that is available in the Android environment. So we've already seen, devices for folks with learning disabilities, for visual impairments, and individuals who are blind. Just free stuff that's right there built into commonly used items that we have all around us, and many of the folks that we work with have as well. So if we move on to another slide here. All right, so maybe not everything that you are utilizing or maybe not everything about the built-in features is ideal for your particular situation, then we can layer on top of that by looking at some of the apps that are out there. For instance, Be My Eyes is one that folks that are blind or have low vision might utilize. And what it does is it helps somebody identify an item. So it uses a system of volunteers all over the world. And maybe I'm struggling with being able to read instructions like a schedule at a bus stop or something like that. And I can use Be My Eyes, and it works with my camera. It takes a picture of the image, or it highlights the image. It goes up, a volunteer will get back to me and tell me, and actually very quickly, and tell me what it is that that sign might say, or help me identify something in my environment. The KNFB Reader is a more robust tool that can read websites, documents, all those types of things. It can they can either speak it back to me, or I can use it with refreshable braille to have it read back tactily to me. So we start with the free things, and if we need something a little bit more robust to make things accessible to us on our devices, then there are also a number of apps that are out there as well. And so we'll look at some on the next slide for folks that have learning disabilities or have different learning styles. On the left-hand side is something called Prismo Go. That's one of several apps that are out there that I refer to as, or actually everybody refers to, or most people refer to as scan and read apps. So you're out there and maybe you're applying for a job, or you need to read a lease agreement or something of that nature. But it'd be very difficult for you to be able to read it quickly in the paper format. So with Prismo, which I think is about $5, and there's not a lot of learning curve with it, might be a little bit more than that. It works with the camera. So I have Prismo loaded on my device. I open it up. I essentially take a picture of the device, and then you'll see in the middle slide that, again, it has built in what is called OCR, or optical character recognition software in it. So we'll take that text, it will convert it into print text, and then I can have it read back, which you'll see highlighted there on the third slide. So within seconds, something that I may not have been able to access, I can take a picture, it gets converted into a format that I can then have read back to me, and I can get that content and I can go on with my life and do what it is I'm trying to do. So that's Prismo Go. It's what I call a scan and read app. On the right-hand side is one that we see used a lot in schools again, and this is called Voice Dream Reader. And it can be put on my phone, it can be put on my iPad, it can be put on just about any mobile device. And it kind of works like Speak Screen and Speak Select, in the sense of it will take text, it will convert it, it will read it back to me. And there's a number of different ways I can manipulate it. I can have it read, highlight a line at a time. I can have highlighting on the word it's speaking. I can jump back and forth within a document. So I can use it on email. I can use it on a worksheet. I can use it on things that I've stored in Google Docs. I can use it on websites. So it offers a lot more avenues in which it can be practical and effective for an individual. So that's called Voice Dream Reader. Relatively inexpensive, but it can open up a lot of worlds for folks that struggle with reading. If we move on to the next slide. Now we're going to change gears a little bit. And we're going to talk about some standalone software that's used by folks, most often folks who are blind and low vision. And this is kind of another little bit of a learning lesson here. And there are probably those people that would argue with me a little bit on how I'm going to define this. But generally speaking, I've mentioned several times the idea of having text converted into an audio format. And when we're talking about that idea for folks that are struggling readers due to a learning disability or different learning style, then we usually use the phrase text to speech. The same kind of idea when we're talking about folks that are blind or low vision is usually either going to be, is usually referred to screen reading. That's the idea of making it text in an auditory format. And so I'll have to do a shameless plug here, because if you are not familiar with our telecommunications access program for internet, and you know somebody that can benefit from these next couple of products I'm going to talk about, then you should probably become familiar with that program, because this would be a way for those individuals to get these types of items, among other computer access items, and be able to do something that they might be wanting to do. So screen reading software, most often used by folks who are blind. JAWS is one that's been around for a long time. It can read commands on your computer. It can read emails. It can read websites, assuming they're accessible. It just basically takes all those graphical things that show up on a computer screen, convert them into an auditory format, so that somebody has access to them on equal footing with somebody who doesn't, with a sighted individual. NVDA, I want to bring people's attention to, because it's actually a free screen reading software that's out there, and it's pretty decent. And so it's a way to kind of explore that if somebody wants to go down that route, or maybe they just can't afford JAWS for whatever reason, then you might investigate NVDA as an option for providing an individual who's blind with screen reading software so that they can take advantage of things. On the right-hand side is screen magnification software, most often going to be used by folks who have low vision. The difference sort of between screen magnification and just magnifying content on a screen magnification software is designed with people who are low vision in mind. So if I just make the font larger, you start to get pixelated and all those types of things. Screen magnification software sort of prevents some of those types of things, but it also offers a whole bunch of other options for individuals. The contrast thing, which I was talking about, inverting the colors. Some screen magnification softwares also come with the ability to have screen reading along with magnification. They're just designed, they're more robust packages to address all the various issues that somebody who's low vision might encounter, or all the ways that they need to manipulate text so they can access it. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, which are, again, some softwares. A couple of these can be accessed through our telecommunications program for internet, but these are the text-to-speech softwares, where I can take text and I can have it converted into an auditory format. And these are really useful for folks that have learning disabilities or different learning styles. Some of the more familiar ones that people might have already come across somewhere along the way is Read and Write. Kurzweil 3000 is another. Not only are they useful for taking print text and converting it into an audio format, they're useful for writing. And they are, again, just like the screen magnification softwares, more robust in the sense of the different features they have that are all just designed to make it easier for somebody who struggles to be able to manipulate the reading material in a way that's most effective for them. I want to draw people's attention to the one on the bottom right, which is called Got It, which I probably mispronounced like 9,000 times over the years before I finally heard how it was properly pronounced. This is interesting because it's designed more so for people with dyslexia in mind, with kind of the way that it's set up. And we've had a lot of attention in the state of Missouri over the last couple of years about students with dyslexia. We know that there are a lot of individuals out there that have dyslexia, and it's going to affect them for their entire lives. And this particular product was kind of designed with some of their peculiarities in terms of how they see things in mind, so that it was more effective for that population. All right, let's move on to the next slide, which are just some standalone devices for folks that are blind and low vision, just some other things that I wanted to make sure people were aware of. In the upper right-hand corner, or I'm sorry, the upper left-hand corner, is another version of the Orcam, and it is there's a version for struggling readers, and then there's also a version for folks that are blind or low vision, more so for folks that are low vision. And this is a little camera that is on a little sleeve that I can maybe put on my glasses, or you can put it on a pair of fake glasses for that matter. And so if I walk up to something like a poster on a wall, or if I have a magazine in front of me, or any kind of print material, and it would be difficult for me to access it. If I have this device on, I can touch on the side, and in relatively quick time, almost instantaneously, it will convert it into an auditory format, and I can have it read back to me. And I can usually do that relatively quietly without disturbing other people by having an earbud in or something of that nature. So a pretty innovative type of technology that is really effective for a lot of individuals. In the middle there, we have something called the Pen Friend. This is one of the things that I always think is only limited by people's creativity. It uses a series of stickers or little tabs that have code written in them so that I can record messages. So I would like say, let's use the cereal boxes, for instance. I may not be able to identify any of those 3 cereal boxes when they are there in the cupboard, but I can record in what those cereal boxes are. And when I take my pen and then touch it to the tab, it will tell me that it's Frosted Flakes or it's Cheerios or it's Cap'n Crunch. And there are so many other ways that the Pen Friend can be used. I could use it to help me access instructions on how to take my medicine, or I could use it to help me understand how long I should put a can or how long I should put something on the stove that I've just taken out of a box that I need to warm up. Lots of really great, good creative uses that are out there for this particular device that not only, it's predominantly used by people who are blind or have low vision, but you can also easily find ways to use this for folks that have learning disabilities or other types of learning styles that make remembering things or just accessing print text difficult. In the upper right hand corner there, this is one of the areas where 5 years ago, if you'd told me there'd be this much innovation in electronic enlarging, I would have laughed. I would not have taken that bet. But it is stunning to me how we have taken something, the world of electronic enlarging, and continue to improve it. Many of us may be familiar with CCTVs back in the day, which had the large monitor and the XY table underneath, and they were bulky. And if you were using them, you were probably sitting in the back corner, far away from the rest of the world. But now the electronic enlarging has gotten much more portable, much more lightweight. A lot of these devices, like the one that's illustrated, can be folded down, so I can take it easily with me on vacation or from home to my job or from home to school. And a lot of them also have a OCR built into them. So not only can I use it to magnify text, I can also use it to have text read back to me. So very useful for folks that are low vision, much more portable, much more high quality and than they used to be. But it's important to realize that that's another option that's out there that might be ideal for somebody, especially somebody who doesn't have a cell phone, who's still reliant, think senior citizens, for instance, who aren't comfortable using high-tech devices like iPads and cell phones, but they still want to be able to independently read their own their email, or not email. They want to independently be able to read their regular mail or read letters or the newspaper or what have you. Right below the electronic enlarging device on the bottom right-hand side is what we call a scan and read machine. And so it is essentially, it takes a picture. I have a piece of mail. Somebody gives me a flyer, for instance, and I can't read it independently. I might take it and put it underneath the arm there, and that arm has a built-in camera, and I push the button, it scans it and converts it into an auditory format so that I can hear what that piece of print text, I can hear what it said, and have this device almost instantaneously read it back to me. So scan and read machines are kind of how they're referred to. And then finally, on the bottom left-hand corner is refreshable Braille, which there are still a lot of individuals who use Braille. It's the number of devices that have come out over the years that are lightweight, they're portable, and they interface with iPads and iPhones and computers, and they enable people to be able who use Braille to quickly, easily utilize that format of communication for what it is that they need to do. I think that was the last slide of devices. Julie, is that correct? Yes, it is. Oh, I remember what I wanted to do here. The last thing I wanted to say is that if you are not already paying attention to accessibility digital accessibility, that your website, that your social media, that your electronic documents, all those types of things are accessible to assistive technology. This is kind of my soft scolding to all of you, that you need to pay attention to that. Assistive technology works best, things like screen reading, text-to-speech, Braille devices, all those types of things. They only work as good as the world is accessible to them. So if you are not paying attention to this subject, consider this my little scolding to everybody, that it's important that we make accessibility in what we put on the web and how we our websites, et cetera, accessible. And if you are in any need of any guidance on this, this is something that Missouri Assistive Technology has been paying a lot of attention to and has developed some resources for. So that, I believe, is the last slide. And we are starting to run up against the time. Oh, I lied.
It's hard when you can't see what's next, isn't it? You're doing a good job.
It is, but you moved some slides around on me a little bit, so I kind of got out of sync here. But I have shamelessly plugged some of these programs that we have at Missouri Assistive Technology already. We have the internet program, which could be used for folks who qualify, could access screen reading, text-to-speech software, several other things. We have our wireless program, which might be a match for somebody who has low vision or other types of disabilities that make using a traditional cell phone difficult for them. And we always strongly encourage people, if there are devices that you see that I talk about that you would like to get more familiar with, or you know somebody that might benefit from exploring them more, please consider signing up for our free short-term device loan program, ETC. It's not only for the consumers you work with. When I talk about devices, I always have this dream that people will sign up and borrow them out of ETC because you yourself want to get to know them better so that you're more informed and can have better discussions with the folks that you work with. And then we also have a series of demonstration sites around the state of Missouri that individuals could access to learn more. And we do training and resources. And then on the funding side there, funding is always a little bit of an issue for assistive technology. Funding options have gotten better over the years. I mentioned the internet program, the wireless program. For individuals who have waivers under the Division of Mental Health, they have expanded those over the years so that they are more inclusive of types of assistive technology. And so that is a funding source that I kind of feel is a little bit underutilized, but we have seen things like the OrCam Read access through the waiver program, other types of assistive technology that I talked about have been accessed through the waivers. So kind of keep that in mind. And then there are some philanthropic organizations around the state that might be interested in helping to fund some of these devices as well. All right.
Thank you, David. That is some good project plugging there. So
yeah.
We're going to put up another poll. I know there's at least one or two questions in the chat box, and I think we're going to run out of time. So for those of you who had some very specific questions for David, we will send those to him with your information and see if we can we'll get him to answer. But real quick, David, I'm just going to ask you, someone's asking about the Recite Me website add-on. Do you know anything about that?
I do. I don't have anything I can share. I'm kind of freezing up here. I'm familiar with it. And Jeff, if you want to contact me afterwards, dbaker@mo-at.org or anybody, and I'll put that in the chat. If it's the one I think about, I'd be glad to share my opinions on it with you. Yeah.
Thank you. So we've just got a couple minutes left. I just wanted to let you know that we have, for July, we're going to talk about assistive technology to keep you organized. Now, I have no idea how David's going to pull this one off, but he seems confident that he has lots of great things to share about using AT to keep us organized. So you'll be seeing, hopefully you're getting your emails, and we'll see that for registration. If you've not filled out the poll yet, please go ahead. And then We are, and I always forget to do this at the beginning, and I apologize. We really would like to know, we've got some ideas for August and September, but if there are burning AT issues that you have, you'd like to tell us about, either drop it in the chat or drop us an email. I feel like here is both David's email and my email. So if you think of any topics that you are interested in for the coming months, please let us know. We would be glad to take a look at that. AT for home safety. Okay, thank you, Julie Quick out there. All right. Okay, so we are at 1:29. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you have enjoyed the series. I want to thank David for all the great information he provides us every week. I want to thank Miranda for executive producing our series today and other days. So she refuses to put her camera on, but one day I'm going to make her talk on these. So thank you all very, very much. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't turn mine in.
Is that Patty Gross I hear?
I may be disgusting, but I'm certainly not gross.
Sorry, I don't know why I added an R to your last name. How are you, Patty?
Yeah, people do it all the time. That's what I do.
David,
Hi, Patty.
Hi, I recognize the voice, but I can't put a face to it.
Patty, it's me, Skippy Kaufman.
How the heck are you?
Oh my goodness, I'm amazing. You just made my day. How are you?
I am abundantly, audaciously blessed.
Oh, I miss you, Patty. It's been a long time.
Yes, it has. I miss you coming to a steering committee meeting.
Oh, I know. I hope I can be able to get back involved with that and come see you soon.
So what are you doing these days that you don't have time for us?
Oh, life has been a whirlwind, but I'm hoping to open up some time. Just in a lot of different transitions and hopefully transitioning back to put myself in a position to come back to People's First and spend some time doing what I love and seeing everybody.
That would be awesome. Where is it you live in the state?
I am still in Hannibal area, but transitioning out to the country. Hey, Patty, you should give me, I can give